This episode is brought to you by Helix Go.
All right, welcome on in. This episode, I've got Javier with Hyco Logistics, and they are primarily a labor company, but offer a little bit more. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, a little bit about what's going on in the industry, especially since we didn't have any storms today, and what we're looking for in the future for this year, this season, and the upcoming freeze event. So, Javier, welcome in.
Thank you. Good morning, Mike. I appreciate you inviting me to come in on this podcast, and hopefully everything I have to say will be some usefulness to some person or another.
I
Let's see
think
what we
so.
can do.
Javier and I have known each other for a few years and have become good friends. And, Hyco is a unique service in what they offer as far as labor. If you need them on projects, their lead guy is almost always going to be WRT and ASD. But Javier, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the one thing that sets us apart, on the labor side, is we're a very unique. We like to consider ourselves in the labor aspect is more quality versus quantity. Most of your labor companies that are out there are going to be able to deliver on large scale and get you people local, which is something that we actually don't favor. We are a labor company that we prefer to do large loss. That's our niche. And we mobilize people from our 4 pooling points. It's either going to be Texas, Louisiana, Florida, or our headquarters in Indy. And then we've got a couple of smaller pools that we pull from up in Chicago and North Carolina. Being able to pull those people, this is where we kind of have developed a system that works better than most. Is we like to say that we manage people better than anybody else. And I've worked with a lot of labor companies in my 40-year career, but the one thing that I'll say is when you manage people, which is the hardest thing to do in labor, it's about
Right.
being able to have your groups contained to their supervisor, or what we call our project manager. We travel in groups of 15. And if you'll know, in a large loss situation, once you get a certain number of people on site, if you're using locals, you're going to have a crew of 15 or a crew of 50, and they're all going to show up in their own vehicles. So you're going to have a cluster to begin with right in the parking lot, because you're going to have 50 people with 50 different vehicles. Our teams travel in groups of 15, and we have one van, which is company owned. So we have control of that as it is, but our people show up in one vehicle. They're all in the appropriate gear. Their project manager, supervisors, who everybody answers through. That's your point of contact. In the restoration on all the projects, you'll have your one point of contact, which is a English speaking person. And the cool thing about it is we get to the job site, you give us our scope of work, you give us your daily goal, and our team stays together. They stay at the same hotel, they have all 3 meals together, and they're managed to where they get from point A to point B together. So everything is very well organized on our standpoint, and our group even has a clerk that travels with the team that takes care of all the paperwork. That includes your cruise sheets, your sleep logs, your hotel portfolios, and then the weekly backup documentation, whether it's consumables or what we're tracking. But all that paperwork goes to our office, and then it's actually fed over to you. And then weekly with your invoice that's delivered from our office, you'll have all the backup that we just talked about. So again, we're a very unique, very well organized, and we're, like I said, a large loss niche company. We don't do the day-to-day work that everyone else facilitates with your local labor. Again, we manage people, and we do it better than anybody else in the industry.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've been able to witness firsthand. During Ian, I think was the first time. I'd known about Hyco for a while, and but I've never did hire them. And then when we did a massive project during Ian, down in Boca Grande Island, Gasparilla Inn and Club, while I was in my previous life as a contractor, we brought in like 5 different contractors underneath us to assist us, and one of them basically called in you guys, and I think we fluctuated between 1 and 4 different crews at a time. I mean, depending on what we had going on that day. I think we started out with 3, then we ramped up, and then we started backing down. But the one thing I did love about it is I knew each morning who I needed to go to for each crew. And so I would assign them, we were doing a property that had 49 buildings. And so I would assign them their buildings that day. And I would know who I needed to go to, who the leader was of that crew, if I was having any issues or had anything to do. The other great thing about you guys is your guys are people that work with you all the time. And so they know what they're
Yeah.
doing. They know what the industry is like. And, it's not like you said earlier, you're getting a bunch of local people who have never seen an extractor. They don't know what a dehu is from an air mover or an air scrubber. They have, your guys always have a clue and understand what's going on, and especially that lead guy because he's certified, and then you can also count him. If you're getting audited by a consultant or anything like that, then you're always able to use that guy as a restoration supervisor too in your paperwork, which is great. Tell us a little bit about what you guys have been doing lately, though, with the duct cleaning and stuff like that. I know you guys have been training with Chris down at Global Catastrophe, and I'm going to have him on here next week. But tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the one thing that the owner of Hyco, Umberto Yanez, I've been with Hyco now 8 months, and the reason that I actually chose to partner with and become part of the Hyco team was he takes that same mentality and concept that you're only as strong as the people under you, and so the one thing is Umberto reinvesting back into his people, getting them OSHA certified, 10 and 30, has Whopper, getting them to be able to become IICRC water technicians. Our project managers, take a lot of pride in Umberto reinvest, like I said, back into them, because we know that if they're better, we're better. So Umberto had a thought, we're approached time and time again on doing asbestos workers or air duct cleaning. So Umberto said, hey, you know what? These companies, our strategic partners, keep coming to us and they're needing additional services. And if we're not going to provide them, somebody else is. So we actually took the incentive to go ahead and get some air duct cleaning people certified. And we were thinking on firsthand was to, if we can get these air duct cleaning guys certified, because every air duct cleaner in the country that was providing those services was reaching out to us to backfill their labor. So Umberto said, hey, look, our customers are having to sit and wait before they can get an air duct cleaning service out there that's delivering the same quality service, and they're relying on us. So why not us go out and invest in the equipment to go ahead and provide that service when it's needed? And it's turned out to be one of the best things that we've done. So now we not only have the labor that has gone through the classes, through the global catastrophe with Chris Carter down in Port Arthur, we've gotten our people certified and trained, and we've actually made an investment and bought the equipment that's needed to do the large loss commercial air duct cleaning services, either in water, fire, mold type situations. So not only can we provide the labor, but we can actually offer the service of full turnkey air duct cleaning.
Oh,
And
that's
I think
amazing.
that's going to be a very valuable asset, moving forward.
Oh, no, absolutely, and I know you guys have been on projects where you've seen other contractors brought in to do that service, so that's great if you're already there doing the labor to be able to transition right over to doing the duct cleaning towards the completion of the project, so that's amazing.
And Mike, you and I've been doing this for a long time, and the one struggle that we've seen is it's real easy to call yourself a storm chaser or to try to rely on or to take benefits from getting invited or being part of a hurricane or a cat work situation. But the survival of anyone's business is always going to be connected to your day to day. And
100%.
that's the one thing that company owners in our industry, a lot of them don't realize, and when you start banking on the big storm, you're setting yourself up for failure,
Well, as
so
this year actually shows, there's no storm this year,
exactly.
and so, that's a great transition, as like and it's especially true with labor, so like what Javier was saying, I've used basically two labor companies in my career, over or at least over the last 10 years, 2 to 3 primary guys, and they're guys I knew I could rely on to provide one-off services. And if you can provide me a one-off large loss service with the quality labor, then that you're going to be my first call during a hurricane. Years like this, it's funny. I preach and preach and preach that, a good sales team has been strong, which I think you're one of the best salespeople I know, which is a relationship based type of salesperson, because you sell yourself whenever you're a salesman. I started in this industry 20 years ago as a sales guy. That's how I got started. And it's all about relationships and trustworthiness, because you're selling yourself before you even sell the service or the company that you're working for. In cases like this year, what you're really going to see is those companies that have maintained good relationships. And so, yeah, if I was going to call XYZ labor company, and I don't want to throw any labor companies under the bus that are out there, and yeah, they may be able to use Facebook to show up with 500 people during a storm that are, guys that you're having to fire half of them on the first day and chase them down, and you catch them sleeping in the break rooms, doing drugs on the job sites, drinking, whatever. We've all seen it, especially during hurricane responses. To have a company like yours that is doing it day in and day out, 365 days out of a year, is just, it's an amazing thing. It really is.
Well, it's you and I shared in a conversation with with a, a client yesterday where you got a restoration company that has a large loss and they're utilizing local labor
I'm fine if you
and
mention them. Those 2 companies actually use our software, so I'm fine if you mention them.
so well you told me his name. I think you said his name was Greg Warren. I haven't worked with him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, Greg, okay, I thought you was talking about the project you were on,
Oh,
this week with, Chris
yeah,
Carter and
with
absolutely.
Michael Balonis and Chris Carter up there in
Yep.
Oklahoma State. Hey, you know what? That's going to be a nice loss. But the difficulties, this job that we're talking about, they're having problems with their labor company, and it's because they're they send labor to his site and they get this team of labor, they get them trained and walk them through the scope of work and their daily goal, and then they're ready to really get the ball rolling day 2, and they get a whole new group of people,
Yep.
so they've got to start back over again. So again, that's a good point, as far as the one thing about us, is not only are we seasoned and trained, but you're going to get the same guys, and if you have a preference on your project managers that work well with you and your teams, we're going to do our best to send you that same team and that same project manager, because they already know the workflow and how your systems, flow as well. I see us, yeah, our book of business is almost doubled or even maybe tripled in 2025. And it's all goes back to that
Without a
general rule
hurricane.
of thumb, consistency. Consistency is the key in everything that we do in the restoration industry. If you can't deliver consistency, then you're
Which is impossible for most labor companies. I mean, let's
yeah,
just be honest. I mean,
yeah,
I can count on 2 fingers labor companies I know that provide consistency, maybe 3,
right,
and
right.
it's exactly what you said, and that's because you guys try to keep the same crews, and your ideal job is a project that's gonna have a minimum of what? A minimum of at least a week and 15 people at a minimum,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We've done the statistics, and for us to do what we do and especially stay in our lane in that large loss niche, yeah, it's got to be at least 15 people for at least 1 week for us to go ahead and be a fit for you, and to make sure that we're able to deliver what we need to, and to make sure that we're successful. But again, the day to day is something that we don't do. Not to say that if you're not one of our premium clients or someone that's needing some help, if we have people sitting local and you need a couple of guys, hey, we'll make it happen. We don't have to hit a home run on every project, but we know what works best for us. But at the same time, we're flexible.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I think that a lot of guys, this year are now also looking towards, possible freeze events, and I know that they're hoping for a freeze event, or a polar event, whatever we want to call it. But what I've been trying to, which everybody obviously that's listening in, keep Javier in mind. If you don't know Javier, reach out to me. If you know me, or send me a message through the website, whatever you want to do, and I'll get you in touch with Javier. But, Freeze events have been great. I remember after Ian, I was thinking I was going to be able to go home. We finished up on December the 13th, our deadline on I don't want to say how big of a project, just because my former boss I'm still friends with, but it was a massive project. Let's put it that way. We were running 120 sheetrockers and then another 30 plus skilled tradesmen every single day for the recon side of this project. It was a massive project. And I got home on December the 13th or 14th, and my phone started ringing on Christmas Eve.
Yep. Yep.
And next thing you know, we're all up north for this polar vortex that come in and hit affected properties all the way down into Georgia and Alabama. And so this year, if you guys are looking for anyone like that, reach out to Javier, obviously. And, what are you guys doing to kind of prepare for that? And, what is your mindset?
Well, weather's so unpredictable, but you've always, like they say, you have to prepare, prepare, prepare. And, as much as we want to plan, you really can't plan. But, the one thing that we're doing is we're keeping everybody up north on standby. We've been very blessed and we're very fortunate right now. I think we've got about 300 people out working right now on about 8 different large loss projects. So we're busy, even though there wasn't a storm. And that's, what we do. We're there for our strategic partners that, they get a loss and we're going to be there. So, at the same time, we're still educating. We've got classes that are set up. We've got people signed up for. All our vans, I think we're up to 65 company owned vans in our fleet.
That's
And
awesome.
all those vehicles are getting serviced and ready for the winter. And we're strategically placing our vehicles, where we know that those harsh winters are going to hit more in the Midwest, up through a 35 corridor between Texas and Minnesota. And then,
Right up
of
here where I
course, our
moved to.
headquarters. Exactly.
I left Florida.
And
I left Florida
then,
for the freeze.
get away from there. Yeah.
I still have my house down there. If it hadn't sold, I might be I told Ray and them I may end up doing some remote work come January.
Hey, that might not be bad, Mike. I'll tell you what, I might be down there with you, to be honest with you.
All right.
Lord.
Well, Javier, I know you need to run. I'd love to pick this back up and kind of get into your sales mindset, but I know you've got to run. But I definitely appreciate you coming on today.
You got it, Mike. Hey, I appreciate it. And Helix Go, man, the word on the street, Helix Go is on a massive move. You've got some big players that have jumped on board, and I can tell you, I see a lot of people in my travels each week and each month, and trust me, that Helix Go is making a name for itself, and the people that are utilizing it and using it right now are doing great things with it, and that's the new norm,
Yeah, I
and I never.
appreciate it. The biggest thing I think that, compliment that we're getting is from our contractors is how fast they're getting paid and how few fights that they're in, because everything lives in one single environment. Everything is audited by the system itself. So it's very rare. And I know Chris Carter's had some mind blowing jobs that he's done already this year, and how fast it's gone through the audit process because they can find nothing that was duplicated. The system doesn't allow that. It geolocates your labor, so there's no questions that your people were there and that they were working and the whole 9 yards. And we're adding new features like almost each month over the next scheduled thing. We either got a new integration with another software or a new feature that's going to be dropping. And I'd love to say that we'll be perfected by next summer with some new things and ideas that I have that's going to make even things easier in the field. But my thing is also evolve or die. And so if you're not continually changing and adding on new stuff, somebody else is going to overtake you. So our goal is to continue, keep pushing on.
Well, the one thing, Mike, and you don't know how much Umberto and I appreciate it, is you got to understand our business model and what we do. And I know that y'all have gone back to the drawing board, and
Yep.
that's what you guys do so well, is when you see a business and, instead of it being a square peg in a round hole, you've basically told us, hey, give us give us 2 to 4 months, and we're going to have some answers for you guys. So we're hoping that Helixco can come up with a great formula and structure that's going to work for us as well, man. We're excited.
Yep, absolutely. We've got some great things I can't talk about yet coming down the pike as well, and it's really amazing. When you have your own development team right here in the office right beside me, is a bunch of them, but then across the hall and down the hall, we have our own guys here. So when there's a hiccup in the field or the software, there isn't no call the service number or call, the help desk. No, you call me or you call John or you call Sydney, you call one of us, and we're going to walk right into the developer's office and say, hey, this guy's having a problem. Let's figure out what's going on and fix it right now. It isn't no, let us call our developers that are in another country and I'll have an answer for you in 3 days or 5 days.
Right.
It's been amazing for us to do that. And because we're also SOC 2 security, everything is locked in this building. So, nobody has access to your information. There's people out there scaremongering out there because of who some of our investors are. But our investors are stockholders. You don't have access. If you have stock in Apple, you don't have access to the inner workings of what's going on in Apple. You're just a stockholder. And that's the same case here. Because if you go look at who owns Aramco, or you go look who it owns Belfor, good God, you're going to find people from all across the spectrum. Those people
Yeah.
don't have access to the inner workings of the day-to-day of that business. So, all right, man. Well, I appreciate it. And I know you got to run this 12:30. Your wife's going to be on you. And I will get you back in on another one because I really want to talk some just shop stuff, that has nothing to do with, Hyco. And because you're one of the best sales guys I know as well. Thanks, Javier.
Hey, Mike, I appreciate it. Thank you, buddy.
All right, man.
Have a good one.
All right, bye.
This episode is brought to you in part by Hyco Logistics. You can contact Javier at the number on the screen, area code 317-775-2516.